Okay, the U.S. Senate is obviously live and in session, as Lauren Burke. They're in session, and what we have here is a situation where, once again, the Democratic Party has caved into the Republicans, which is actually a surprise. It was just yesterday that John Thune announced that the Senate would uh, not come out of session until the shutdown was over. What he actually meant wasn't that he meant that they would be in around the clock. It was that he meant that they would come in session every day and over weekends until the shutdown was resolved. And what we see is, once again, the Democratic Party figuring out a way to step on its own messaging and really be the killjoy at the end of a week where they were unbelievably triumphant around the country, particularly in Virginia and in New York in historic fashion. And it ends on this Sunday night with the news that effectively the Senate Democrats have given into the Republicans on the shutdown, and it is a big struggle here to figure out exactly what they have gotten out of it, which is what everybody is searching to find out. There is no deal here for the extension of the tax credits for healthcare, which was the biggest part of this deal. That was the reason given every single day by House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries as to why this shutdown was happening. So to look up and find that that's not part of a deal to end the shutdown is a real surprise to a lot of people. Now, having said that, Hakeem Jeffries is not the one orchestrating this moment. That is being orchestrated by a bunch of members of the U.S. Senate, led by Chuck Schumer. I don't care what anybody says. He's saying that he's voting against the deal, but what that means technically is that they have the votes to get to 60. He doesn't have to vote for it. So he's playing this game of looking like I'm voting against it, but he's actually for it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been codified at all by the Democrats. But clearly, there are some Democrats that are involved in this that are very involved, that are retiring. Several are retiring. Notably, Jean Shaheen is one of those people. And when people are retiring, you get some very interesting and strange results. But as part of this deal, it looks like John Fetterman, of course, had been whining this entire time that, oh my God, we should open the government, because John Fetterman always seems to take the position opposite of the Democratic Party. So that wasn't really that surprising. Angus King is a bit of a surprise. There is a rumor he may retire, so that may have to do with the retirement thing. Maggie Hassan, Dick Durbin, Ossoff, of course, has a big election coming up. Dick Durbin is retiring. So when you look at the people who are caving into the GOP, caving into the GOP, those people are, a lot of them are retiring. So there are some announcements online from various senators, notably Angela Also Brooks. Mark Warner apparently is a no, and keeping up with the Virginians here. But Tim Kaine is a yes, and predictably getting roasted on his social media accounts, notably his Facebook account. And so that it's going to be a long day tomorrow for them, because quite frankly, people expected more than just what this is. I mean, the SNAP benefits are still not taken care of in this, and the even more importantly, the healthcare tax cuts are not involved in this. So this is something that is not going to go over well with a lot of folks in the Democratic Party that have been pushing for new leadership, pushing for people to fight the Republicans. And this is not what that looks like. It's not what that looks like to most of those Democrats. And that, so them caving in um, is not met with anything tangible that people can say, okay, well, you struck a deal, but you did get these things. That's what people are looking for. What did you get from this deal? And no one can figure out exactly what that is. So the Democratic Party, the leadership of the Democratic Party is bound to be questioned in this moment in a big way. Um, um, And this is something that has happened before. This is something that's happened before. And this is not something that's, again, this is not something that's going to go over well with a lot of folks in the rank and file of the party. I mean, if you, again, if you're going to cave, you got to cave to things that people want to see you cave to, right? Oh, you're caving and you're getting SNAP benefits. Okay, well, that's different than you just cut a deal and no one is seeing anything big from that deal. And again, this was one day after John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, said that, hey, hey, we're gonna be in session. And of course, I guess the Democrats decided that that was scary. I don't know. I don't know what, we haven't heard the total details of this. But yeah, well, we would have thought that they would have learned from the recent election. They just lost the House and the Senate in 26. I don't know that they've lost the House and the Senate in 26, but this is not good. The timing could not be worse. The timing is terrible. The timing is absolutely unbelievable. The Democrats have this big week this week. They put in a historic governor, elected governor, two women, two female governors, Virginia and New Jersey, and then they do this at the end of the week. So this is the timing is just unbelievable. You just have this really euphoric week, and then all of a sudden this happens. I mean, so the Senate right now is voting, and usually with a vote like this, the floor is open for a long time because they have to wait for people to get to the floor, and that takes a long time. Incidentally, I did work for two members of the U.S. Senate, actually three members of the U.S. Senate: Ted Kennedy, George Mitchell, and Tom Daschle. This is so the Senate floor will be open probably for quite a while, and that's what's on the screen right now. But at any rate, I just suspect that the House, but they got a vote on something the House completely ignored. Okay, yeah. I mean, so this idea that what they got out of this was a vote on the healthcare tax credits is a very interesting thing. Since when was the a vote on the healthcare tax credits what everybody was aiming for? I don't remember that being the thing that everybody wanted. What everybody wanted was a fix to the healthcare tax credits. They wanted the healthcare tax credits to continue past December 31. Okay, that's what everyone was fighting for. And nobody said anything that I can remember at any press conference I was at about, oh, we're really fighting for a vote on the healthcare. Nobody cares. And nobody cares about a vote on the healthcare because the Republicans are going to vote against it. They're going to vote against it, and they're going to walk out the door. I mean, that's just what that's going to be. So the Republicans don't care about cutting people's health care. They've been fighting to kill the Affordable Care Act since it was passed in 2010. That has been their goal, to kill the. I mean, the Tea Party, all of that was about that. So why is it a surprise to anybody that they're not going to care to take a vote, which they're going to vote no on? They're going to vote against it. This idea that you're holding them, to vote against it. Here's the other thing: they control the chambers. So I'm not sure why anybody believes that they're going to hold a vote. I would not be sure that they would actually hold a vote. I'm not sure why anybody would believe that. I'll believe that when I see it. I thought I read something about Johnson saying he wasn't going to hold a vote. We'll see. But they can do whatever they want to do because they don't really have to hold a vote on anything. So making a deal with these people in any way is funny to me, and I'm surprised that the Democratic Party is doing that. I mean, I just think that that is uh, amazing, actually. I mean, I think that that's quite interesting. That, oh, we're making a deal with them and we trust them. Trust them on what? They control both chambers, and so why would they say, okay, well, we're going to hold a vote because we made a deal with you? I'm not sure what that is, but that is apparently what the deal is. But it to me, if you hold the government, if you have the government closed for 39 days, and you come away with nothing, or you come away with just a vote, and there is a provision apparently in this deal with regard to firing federal employees. So that was part of this. Okay, I'm not saying that's not important. Of course it is. But the main factor, the main point of interest for this was the healthcare tax credits. That was the biggest thing. That was going to cause people the most pain. That was the thing that everybody was focused on, not whether or not we're going to have a vote on healthcare. That was not the thing that anybody was talking about. So that is a very interesting development that suddenly is part of this. Apparently, Jean Shaheen is in the background. I have no idea why. Suddenly, Senator Jean Shaheen, who is retiring, is deeply involved in this, but she apparently is very deeply involved in this. But really, it's Chuck Schumer. I don't care what anyone says. It's Chuck Schumer. Don't think for one second that Chuck Schumer, I don't care what he votes out there, he's the person who makes this happen. And it just gives you the lingering feeling once again, and his leadership has reflected this a few times, that the leadership in the party is too old and too passive and not up to the fight and not up to the moment in American history that they are in. That has been said many times by many people in many ways, and this is yet another example of it. It always seems like when they get into these situations, Republicans are more, are tougher and more determined to effectively hold out no matter what the issue may be. So, this is the reality of who the leadership is. One of the problems, too, I think that's sort of built into this is that most of the members of the US Senate are millionaires. And frankly, their lives don't change one way or the other, no matter what happens. And I'm convinced that when you don't have family members saying things to you like, wait a minute, if you don't pass this, my life is going to be interrupted, changed. I'm going to have to pay double in my health care. When you don't have people in your life saying that, the impact is different than it would be if you did have people in your life saying that. But a lot of these US senators are multimillionaires, and quite frankly, I just don't think they live the lives of many of the people who are their constituents. They just do not have the same pressures and the same things happening, and this is what happened. So this shutdown deal, which had been rumored for a little bit of time, there had been talk in the background. I didn't necessarily think it was going to happen this badly where they just come up with almost nothing. I mean, this is really close to really making a deal and getting literally like nothing out of it. That I didn't think was necessarily going to happen. But here we are. And again, this is extremely familiar leadership style from Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats. We've seen this before where something is going on. The Republicans, sort of threaten them. They're holding out. They did have the leverage of stopping the Republicans from getting the 60 votes. But the Republicans apparently are going to get to 60 votes with the help of members of the Democratic Party. So once again, when Leader Hakeem Jeffries on the other side in the House is asked, "Hey, are you confident that Schumer's not going to cave? Are you confident that Schumer's not going to cave? Are you confident he's not going to cave?" And he's saying, "No, we're together, we're linked together." And here we go. Here we sit at 9:20 p.m. Eastern with them caving. So tomorrow, and you may hear my voice at the press conference, I'm sure there's going to be one by Hakeem Jeffries tomorrow on Capitol Hill. There is no doubt. Frankly, I think from the standpoint of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries was doing a very good job at staying on message, at talking about health care, keeping the Republicans on defense, and they were on defense. And he had him on defense pretty well by just having so many pressers and he was talking about it, and he's out there and doing a very good job at keeping them backed up. And you didn't see Schumer that much, that was a red flag. And now what do we have? We have the Democrats in the Senate caving in, and you're going to hear, I'm sure, from John Fetterman running his mouth, because he's been running his mouth the entire time. And running, oh my God, we've got to end the shutdown. Look, two words, a name to remember is going to be Connor Lamb. Connor Lamb is bound to primary John Fetterman. I mean, that is just, You just I'm gonna type it into the chat here. Connor Lamb. Remember that name. And if you're from Pennsylvania, you should really just keep thinking about that name. This is a situation where the Democratic Party is going to have to figure out who their leaders are, what their leadership style is against MAGA Republicans, against rising totalitarianism, against a president that doesn't follow the rules, that does whatever he wants. They have to figure out what their leadership style is going to be. And if this is going to be their leadership style, capitulation, I can guarantee you there is going to be some huge pushback in the party, not just from the progressive left, but I actually think moderate Democrats as well are not going to be happy with this posture, because this is a posture of you might as well be a Republican. I mean, that's how it's going to be taken by a lot of people. And this is going to be a very interesting next 24 hours. The House has a caucus tomorrow at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. I guarantee you it's going to be a hot time in the old town tonight on that one. There's going to be a lot of news around right about 3 o'clock. Sure, before that, there's going to be a lot of news. You can see social media already burning up with a lot of stuff because people are extremely unhappy. And Democrats are extremely unhappy with what the news is of what this so-called deal is. There's not a whole lot here on this so-called deal that they're saying, oh my goodness, there's a deal. Well, if this is the deal, then that's problematic. This is going to be something that is going to live with them for a few days. They're lucky that they've got Thanksgiving coming up, because that will blunt the momentum of the criticism that is going to come, and it is going to come hot and heavy toward Chuck Schumer. And this is not something that is gonna go over well. I'm just telling you, you can just see from all the quadrants that you typically see that have been criticizing the leadership of the Democratic Party all year long. You remember when obviously in January, when President Trump came back in for the second time, the Democrats had no plan. Chuck Schumer came in, business as usual. Like there was nothing going on, and they were rolled for the first 3 weeks. It was as if Congress did not exist. Of course, Trump was treating it as if Congress did not exist, and they were just getting completely rolled. And this type of thing where there's no strong comeback, there's no strong leadership in the other direction. This is going to be quite something. And I'm telling you right now, if you look at social media, I would, there's a few accounts. If you were to go and take a peek at Tim Kaine is voting for this deal. He put out a statement saying he was voting for the deal, and his Facebook account has been quite something in terms of the reaction to that. I mean, that's been, you don't necessarily need to look at Facebook. I mean, you just look at X, look at any one of these platforms. But this is going to be something where the criticism is going to come against the party, against certain members of the party. And this is why age keeps coming up in this over and over and over again, because people do not want to see the Democrats giving in. Democratic Party grassroots folks want to see a fight. They want to see pushback. They want to see people fighting. They want to see their elected representatives fighting. And when they don't see it, that causes a great deal of tumult, as it were. And I suspect that's going to be, that's definitely going to be a thing. And so that is a feature of this. And by the time we get to tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I mean, it's 9 o'clock Sunday, of course, November 9. But again, tomorrow, the Democrats do have a caucus at 3 o'clock, the House Democrats. And yeah, I can assure you the House Democrats, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be jumping ship, not wanting to have anything to do with this. This is... this is a situation where I can assure you that by the time we get to tomorrow night, you're going to see full-on discussions and podcasts and all sorts of stuff on leadership in the Democratic Party and and all that, and that's gonna be, that is gonna be hot. I mean, that's just gonna be really, I don't know that he's playing chess there, Craig. I don't know. I mean, we keep hearing that there's this chess game going on. Incidentally, I played tournament chess when I was in high school. I went to St. John the Baptist High School on Long Island, and I was on the chess team. I was board 2. And all this talking about, "Oh, we're playing chess and we're just so cunning and conniving." I actually I don't think it's that complicated. I think Schumer, who turned 75 years old on the 23rd of this month, he turns 75 on November 23rd. I think Chuck Schumer has just doesn't have it in him. I think he is not the guy. I think that he is not he doesn't have the energy, the patience, the fortitude. You gotta have, like, steel in your veins to be this type of leader where you say, like Mitch McConnell used to do, "Hey, I'm gonna hold this entire place up for this thing," or "I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna look you in the eye, and I'm going to wait for you to blink." Takes a certain type of leader. I don't know that Chuck Schumer is that leader. I haven't seen it. We sure as heck didn't see it in January, and when Trump showed back up, they had no plan. There were no meetings. There was no nothing. It was just kind of like they came in, and then Trump started doing a bunch of stuff, and that was it. I mean, if this is a chess game, I'm not impressed by the positions of the rooks and the bishops and and the queen sitting in the background, your most powerful piece. I mean, I just don't see it. What I see is people who don't know, and I'm telling you this as somebody who used to work in the US Senate. I used to work for 3 US senators, Tom Daschle, actually 2 in the leadership, Tom Daschle and George Mitchell. That was back, of course, when our politics was a lot more normal. But the point is, though, that there was no sort of sense then of you give in and get nothing. If there was a deal for something, people were able to point to what that deal was. And that's really hard to see in this moment what the deal was. What deal did they get? The 2 biggest issues impacting millions of people were on SNAP and healthcare. And there's nothing in this deal that I've read yet on SNAP and healthcare. And saying that you're going to have a vote in December is not a deal on healthcare. That's a vote on healthcare. So let's be very clear on what's going on here. When they make a deal, when the Democrats make a deal, they think it's a celebration to get nothing. And they have to explain this to people tomorrow. And when they have to explain it at a press conference, it's going to be quite interesting to see what the answers are. Because the first questions are going to be, what did you get out of this? Democrats, what did you get out of this? And they're going to have an answer. So there's a lot of ways that you could say that maybe chess is getting played during politics. I don't know that this is one of them. And their cave-in on this one is going to be epic because not fixing these problems is going to be noticed by millions of people who are impacted. Remember that these are the same people who sat quiet, not so much the Democrats, but the Republicans, when Trump sends $40 billion, $40 billion of tax money to Argentina, and then turns around and says, we can't pay for SNAP, or we can't pay for this in the United States. We can't pay for the air traffic controllers in the United States, but we can send $40 billion of tax money overseas. I mean, do you see anybody trying to explain that on the Republican side? Now, the Democrats, I think, from a messaging standpoint, smartly have brought that up quite a lot. Certainly Hakeem Jeffries has on the House side. But these are the types of things that Schumer should be saying on the Senate side. And they're allowing the Republicans to get away with a lot. And because their messaging is weak and not particularly pointed, I mean, people understand $40 billion of tax money going to another country. They understand their money not being used in the country that they're in, or in the city that they're in, or in the state that they're in, and going out of the country to Argentina. They understand that. I mean, that's just what it is. And Craig, Oh, yes, they can win. Okay? I mean, they can try to win. See, the problem is they never try to win, so we never figure out if they can win or not. The question of whether or not they can win is never answered. When have they ever tried to win? When have the Democrats brought it to the brink? What have they done that in the last year? Of course, they're gonna have to do it during Biden, but when Trump was here the first time, when did they do it? When did they bring it to the brink? When does that happen? See, we never find out what they can do because they never get there. I would guess that nobody could have ever guessed that Mitch McConnell would be able to win or not. But he sure as hell tried to win, and sometimes he won. Most of the time he won, in fact. He waits to see who blinks. And so I don't know that they ever find out whether or not they can win. They never get to that point. We never find out because, okay, well, wait, we're going to make a deal and then we're going to vote on something. My thing is this too, by the way, is I think there's a lot of mistakes that are made in terms of setting expectations. Okay. One of the things that happened here, Craig, is that, look, they set the expectation that the healthcare tax credits were the playing field that they want to win on, and the funding of the SNAP benefits. Those things were what the Democrats said was their goalpost. The Democrats. So when you tell people that that's your goalpost, and then you capitulate and cave in before you get to that goal, what does that say? And if you're going to cave into that, then don't set that as the marker. Don't set that as the goal. Set something else as the goal. If the goal was to have a vote on healthcare, then tell people that the goal was to have a vote on healthcare. But they spent 39 days telling everybody that the goal was the healthcare tax credits. And then they caved in before they got that. So what is that? I mean, like what? I mean, so again, if you're playing chess, then that should have been figured out, what your goal is. If my goal is to take your queen within the first half of the game, then that's what I'm trying to do with my chess pieces during the game. That's hard to do, by the way. But at least set a goal that is realistic when you know you're in the minority in the Senate and the House. In this case, they were sort of technically, I won't say they weren't in the minority in the Senate, but that 60 vote margin kind of changed the conversation a little bit. But my point is, I don't think they have a strategy. I mean, I look at this and I say to myself, I'm not sure that they have a strategy. It's unclear to me. I mean, when I see stuff like this, I think to myself, is this in fact a strategy? You know, I don't see it. I don't think that it's there, but for some of you who have joined in the last few minutes here, I'm Lauren Burke. I am a former congressional staffer. I've worked for the federal government. I've worked for the state government in New York, state government in Virginia. And I've also worked in the media at ABC News, at USA Today, at the Hill newspaper. I have my own Substack called Black Virginia News. I cover Congress. I'm on Capitol Hill at least twice a week, and I'll be on Capitol Hill tomorrow. I'm sure that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer will have press conferences tomorrow, and I'm all but certain to be there. Tomorrow, Monday, the 10th of November, the Democrats will have a caucus meeting. I suspect that's got to be remotely, so that'll probably be a large Zoom call at 3 p.m. tomorrow, and you can bet that the news is gonna be lit, as they say. All right. And I'll just put that in the chat. The Dems have a caucus. The House Dems. I don't know what the Senate Dems are doing or if they're doing anything. But you know, they do have a caucus, and that's going to be a big thing. So I talk about politics and some other issues, but I certainly talk about issues that deal with homelessness and healthcare, because these are the issues that impact millions and millions of Americans in this country. The shutdown has been going on. The federal government has been shut down now for 39 days over an extension in funding the federal government. And what basically happened was the Democrats said, look, we're not going to agree to fund the government for another extension until we get the situation with regard to the healthcare tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, which expire on December 31, of 2025. So, in translation, everybody's healthcare costs who are on the Affordable Care Act, meaning that if, most people who have jobs and employment don't have to really worry about this. But if you are on the Affordable Care Act, which many millions of people are, uh, your rates are very likely to go up. The information on those rates and open season started on November 1. So people are just now finding out what their rates for 2026 will be. And this is a situation where the Democratic Party in the House and Senate said, look, we're not voting to fund the government any longer until we get an answer on whether or not these healthcare tax credits are going to be extended. That was one of their big asks. And now we find out that there's been a deal tonight, a deal today that was going on where they didn't get the extension to the healthcare tax credits. Well, if you didn't get the extension of the healthcare tax credits, then why did you make a deal? Now, when you look at the senators who are part of this deal that gets the Senate to the 60 vote threshold they need to move forward on the question of funding the government and send the bill over to the House so that they can consider it, you look at the list of Democratic senators and who do you find? A lot of people who are retiring. Gene Shaheen is retiring. I'm not sure what Tim Kaine is doing. I don't, but he's voting for it. As I say, pay no attention to the fact that Schumer is voting against it. He's doing that symbolically so he doesn't get lit up, but he's going to get lit up anyway because he's a leader in the Senate. So he's going to get criticized, but he knows they have the votes to get to 60. So he's kind of just allowing that to happen. Thanks, new member. Let's love it. Thank you so much. And I'm just saying that the way that this goes down is that millions of people in January are going to have higher healthcare costs. And a lot of those people who are not going to be able to pay for those higher healthcare costs are probably going to just drop out of the system. And what you're left with when that happens is a lot of people who do not have health insurance, who wait longer to get treated, wait longer to go to the doctor, and that increases the cost for everybody across the board. That was the reason for why the Affordable Care Act came up in the first place. Um, and so I just, would just tell everybody that there's going to be a lot of drama come January with regards to the cost of healthcare. Um, and there's going to be a lot to say about what the positioning, what the leadership strategy is of the Democratic Party. That is a major question here. What is the leadership strategy of the Democratic Party is a major question. It's something that's been lingering for a long time, and been talked about all year. Like I said, on podcast, on this and that, you can see people arguing on social media about it. What is the leadership strategy of the Democratic Party? And we still don't really have an answer to that. We don't have an answer to that because there is no leader really. Once you lose the presidency, Joe Biden was the de facto leader of the party, and of course he was not completely energetically there. And so now who's the leader? Is it Chuck Schumer? Who's the highest ranking Democrat? Who's the person who speaks for the party? I actually think Gavin Newsom is sort of taking that role. Some might say Governor Pritzker in Illinois is taking that role. But right now, there is a big discussion about who the leader is in the party. And when things like this happen, a cave in to the Republicans on issues like healthcare and SNAP, et cetera, and so on, that spikes that discussion even louder, as you might imagine. So at any rate, hey, I mean, there should be a reset, but it is a very interesting time that this happens on the Sunday after Election Day, November 4, when the Democratic Party swept the nation. And they swept the nation because Donald Trump's approval ratings are completely underwater. The voters spoke, and particularly in Virginia, sent the message that they do not want any more of this. And as a result, in Virginia, there was a historic sweep of Democrats on the state level. All three Democratic offices statewide in Virginia, They swept the Republicans out of power, and the Democrats will take over in January. And then, most notably, there will be a 64-seat majority for the Democrats in the Virginia legislature. It's a 100-person legislature. The Democrats, for the first time since 1987, will have 64 seats, which is unheard of. That happened because the voters said, we want to make a statement against what is happening. What we're seeing is making us extremely uncomfortable. And as a result, they swept them out of power. Um, well, that's an interesting theory, Jeremy, because right now, what we see in the media with regard to media control is that the Republicans, you remember, the Republicans have the biggest platform in terms of broadcast in Fox News, which has more viewers than CNN or MSNBC. So every night Fox News has about 1 million people watching, a little bit over 1 million, 1.1, something like that. The only person on MSNBC, which is now about to be called something else, that can get it to 1 million is Rachel Maddow. That's it. But when people say to me that the Democrats are in control because they control too much of the media, certainly there's left-wing media, because obviously you can see it. MSNBC is left. I would say the Washington Post and the New York Times is left as well. And I would say that their left-leaning ways are coming to an end, because, of course, Jeff Bezos now owns the Washington Post, and we're seeing some pretty conservative editorials coming out of the Washington Post all of a sudden. The New York Times is kind of just confusing. I would say on social issues, they're definitely on the left. When it comes to foreign policy, they're sort of all over the place politically. But certainly the Republicans have their fair share of of the Republicans have their fair share of media, the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, certainly the Daily Caller, the Blaze, certainly Ben Shapiro. Um, Tucker Carlson has a huge audience. There's a lot of right wing media, particularly new media, and so I think that it's sort of evening out, I guess you could say. I would certainly say that a lot of the media was leftist, but that's starting to really even out. But it's hard to say. CBS, obviously, with Barry Weiss at the steering wheel, will be more to the right, and you can see that. Margaret Brennan, once again, today, this morning, proved that that's going to probably be true. So it's hard to say. I do think the media does control a lot of what people see and think and all that. But remember, Sinclair, which is a conservative-owned company, owns a ton of local stations around the country. Sinclair Broadcasting, including WJLA in the Washington, D.C. area. And there's a lot to say about, once upon a time, I think certainly a lot of the media was center left, but I think there's a lot that's center right. And certainly with independent media, that's definitely the case. But at any rate, you can see the Senate floor is open, and it'll probably stay open like this for hours, because they got senators. I doubt they're flying in. Don't know if I'd say that. Obviously, most people know that there's a big problem right now with the air traffic control system. A lot of flights have been canceled, delayed, etc., and so on. Some people are driving in, probably when they have a vote like this that's unexpected on a Sunday night. The floor will be open like this for hours. You can see the pages and the staff on the floor. I used to work in the U.S. Senate, and we'd have votes that were open for hours. And when you have an unexpected vote like this, it would be open for hours. And you don't really find out what the vote will be and who's going to vote what until they put their hand up. But right now, it is expected that this measure to fund the government will go over to the House at some point, and the House will consider it. So the House will probably come into session next week for the first time, and they've been on vacation for 39 days. Imagine that, right? Being on paid vacation. These members of the House and Senate are getting paid, by the way, while 174,000, by the way, as their staff is not getting paid. And not even the cops are getting paid. And somebody who's dating a U.S. Capitol Police officer who just retired, he's not getting paid. In fact, he can't even process his retirement because of the shutdown. So, I mean, there's just so many things that are going on that are just amazing, aren't they? This is what happened when Trump was in office first time. We just have this sort of rolling, continuous feeling of unease that you don't know what's going to happen next. And when you see things like the air traffic control system getting out of whack, that puts people on edge, as does losing jobs and hearing that other people are losing jobs. And there's a state of unease that I don't think is generally a good thing, to say the least. So at any rate, the Senate is open. As I started this, I was remarking that once again the Democrats have caved in to the Republicans, as they have, and we're seeing in this agreement that they've made to reopen the government, to have a vote to reopen the government. The only thing that they seem to have had is a vote on healthcare. I'm not sure that that's going to please too many people. There was a vote on healthcare. Okay, so again, you're going to see a lot of conversations about leadership style and who should be the leader. There's going to be a lot of calls for Schumer to step down. A lot of calls for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run against Chuck Schumer. Expect to see that get real loud, really, really loud. And this is what happens when you don't set expectations properly, and you talk about the healthcare tax credits are really important, and people are making videos and making statements and having press conferences, and then all of a sudden you make a deal that doesn't include the thing that you've been talking about for 39 days, which is exactly what the Democrats just did. So this is going to be a very interesting thing uh, in terms of what happens next.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee. Aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott of Florida. Aye.
As of 4 senators that came in and voted, like I said, this vote will be open for a while. You can tell it's going to be open for a while, just the posture of it. And you can see a bunch of yes votes. Those were all Republicans that just voted. So they voted for this. Again, they need 60 votes to get to passage, which they have apparently. But at any rate, this is going to probably go on for a few more hours. I'm going to wrap up probably in another 15 minutes or so. Thanks for everybody who had joined. Everybody would just please hit the like button. That would be much appreciated if you can. This is going to be a story, obviously, that will be big in the morning when everybody gets up. Interestingly enough, I have a 7 a.m. live thing on a show called Portsmouth Coffee Talk. Portsmouth, Virginia, everybody. Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, about this and so much more. But, a lot of people are sick of the Democrats. Uh, Miss Smith, a lot of people are sick of the Democrats. The Democrats are just again, I think they are in a leadership crisis, whether they want to admit it or not. There is an old guard, new guard argument. I am not a big believer personally in throwing all the older people out just because they're older. It really depends on who it is. And to be quite honest with you, I like older people. I think older people are a huge, huge benefit, particularly when you need advice and you want to avoid making the same mistakes that somebody else has made. Find an older person. They are very done it. They know what's going on. And that's the thing. So I'm not a big believer in let's get rid of Chuck Schumer because he's older. I'm a big believer in let's get rid of somebody because they're ineffective and their leadership is ineffective, and it's been proven to be ineffective because it doesn't yield anything when a deal is made. That to me is the argument, not because somebody's 75 years old. Chuck Schumer turned 75 on November 23rd, by the way. And full disclosure, I used to vote in New York, so I probably did vote for Chuck Schumer his first time he ran. Now I vote in Virginia, but at any rate, so the Senate is open. There's going to be a lot of talk over the next few days about the Democratic leadership strategy and what's going on in the party and who should lead it and who does lead it. and what is going on generally and globally. There's no doubt about it. But I don't see that they got anything from this deal. They got nothing. They basically talked about SNAP and the healthcare tax credits for 39 days and got nothing. That's what happened. I mean, I'm not. I can't. There's no other way to say it. Like, what did they get out of it? A vote on healthcare? Who said anything about a vote on healthcare? Why was having a vote on healthcare a big deal? I'm not sure why that would be like a thing, at all. So I'm just a little bit confused. Jeremy, if it's at 59, yes now, thanks, because I don't know what the tally is. And I'm not really looking at MSNBC right now or CNN, though I probably should be on my iPad. I'm trying to look at the Steelers game, but that apparently is not going to happen. At least right now. I guess I'll see the second half of the Steelers game. But at any rate, yeah, 59, yes, 40, no. Jeremy, thanks a lot. I just, they do have the votes. I mean, they say they have the votes. It's really a matter of, um, it's a matter of just waiting for everybody to officially vote. And then this goes to the House, and you are going to hear a bunch of noise coming from the left complaining about their leadership. Get ready to hear that, because that's definitely happening. That's definitely going to happen over the next few days and over the next 24 hours. It is an insular discussion that, frankly, I think people who are normal don't necessarily care about one way or the other, but it does have something to do with the future of the Democratic Party, the direction of the Democratic Party in changing times, and how the Democratic Party will try to impact change and policy moving forward in the Trump era. That is definitely going to be a discussion. And the reason that's going to be a discussion is moments like this, where you talk about something and then get something else and it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, well, yeah. And there's Portsmouth Coffee Talk. Yep, I'll see you in the morning. And yeah, well, there's going to be a lot to talk about in the morning on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. You can believe that. Uh, and not only can we talk about the Steelers and the Chargers, but we can talk about so much more. Of course, we'll be in Virginia, so we're probably talking about the Reds. I'm sorry, did I say Redskins? The Commanders. A lot of us still say Redskins, by the way, and that is going to be quite a discussion in the morning at 7 in the morning. There's going to be a lot going on tomorrow in Virginia politics. A lot of folks are going to be talking about what is next in 2026. There's a lot going on in the region of Portsmouth, actually, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and so on, politically and otherwise. There's going to be a lot to say, because there's going to be a lot of announcements in the coming weeks about who is running for what. And certainly there's been a lot of rumors about Michael Fagans, who has been courted by a lot of organizations to run in the second congressional district. And the question is, when that might get going. The second congressional district is one of two districts that may have a map redraw, because the Democrats and the state government in Virginia are looking to redraw the maps after the Republicans in Texas decided to redraw the maps to try to control Congress in terms of who was going to win and lose in 2026. But Michael Fagans is one of the people who's been approached by multiple organizations to run for Congress in the second congressional district. And I suspect that that's going to pick up steam, because he is a very exciting member of the Virginia House of Delegates who's won some really tough elections in Virginia Beach, because Virginia Beach is very, very Republican. The Republican governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, is from Virginia Beach. And yeah, there's a lot of Democrats. There's also a lot of Republicans. And so anyway, that's something that's going to take off at some point, that second congressional district race. At any rate, it'll be a lot going on. Jeremy, thanks for subscribing. And if everybody could just hit the like button, it's greatly appreciated. For some reason, YouTube is very obsessed about the like button. Like, if you have any of you out there ever do a live, the like button pushes traffic. And it's really interesting because I didn't think it was a big deal personally, but it is a big deal. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm going to wrap up in 10 minutes at about 10:05, and this vote is probably not going to be over at 10:05. I see that the Steelers are in halftime with the Chargers, so this is going to time out perfectly. Uh, one of my favorite shows is the Chad Ochocinco show Nightcap, um, that comes on after any big sporting event, particularly a football game. I'm a football gal, so I watch football a lot. So I wasn't really supposed to be live tonight, but this whole story broke, and here we are with finding out that the Democratic Party is caving in again to the Republicans. And Jeremy and you guys do have a point. It's harder for them. They are in the minority. It is hard to define how they quote win, but I don't know if I don't know that you could define what happened as winning anything. And if you're not going to win, then don't set people's expectations high. Just don't try to shut down the government for 39 days and then get nothing. And then everybody's disappointed. You could have just funded the government if you're going to do that. So the Democratic Party has a lot of thinking to do about what leadership looks like and about what it looks like to look as if you're fighting, because people do want to see them fight, and they are having trouble with. They're having a great deal of trouble with at least looking like they're doing something. And so, and update for you Virginians out there. So Mark Warner voted no against this, and the other senator, Tim Kaine, voted yes. That's a fun time when we have that split. We get the split between the two is always a fun time. Mark Warner is up for reelection in 2026, and the rumor has it that it's possible that Glenn Youngkin runs against him, and so that may have something to do with that decision or not. I haven't read his statement. Actually, this is his statement right here. So this is always fun. Every day this shutdown drags on. This is a statement by Mark Warner of Virginia. Every day this shutdown drags on, Virginians feel it. From federal workers struggling to pay their bills to families unsure how they will put food on the table because this administration is cruelly and deliberately withholding the assistance they need. I want nothing more than to reopen the government, get folks back to work, and end this needless hardship this Republican shutdown is causing. I appreciate that this proposal includes important language preventing further mass layoffs of federal employees. That's a critical step in protecting our public servants from the administration's campaign of retribution, and something I've long pushed for. But I cannot support, again, this is Mark Warner of Virginia, but I cannot support a deal that still leaves millions of Americans wondering how they are going to pay for their health care or whether they will be able to afford to get sick. So there you go. Mark Warner voting no. And he does set the table in the beginning of this statement saying, look, I know this shutdown is terrible. And I know that it has to end at some point, and it's hurting federal employees who are not getting paid, et cetera, and so on. But he also goes on to say that he's voting against the bill because of the health care issue. That's the issue that the Democrats said that they were shutting the government down over. I mean, so I just, that right there encapsulates, what why this doesn't make any sense. Right? Like, again, why bring it up? If in fact, that was, if you were going to cave on it, why bring it up? That's going to be a central question. Um, so that's problematic. And so again, leadership strategy is a big deal, and I do think that the Democratic Party has too many people in their leadership ranks who just are not into it. They're just not into it. They just don't have the fortitude. They don't have the guts. They, for whatever reason, they're buddies. I think they're friends with the people on the other side of the aisle in such a way that precludes them from really looking people in the eye and saying, "Look, I'm not going to change my mind. This is where we are, and this is it." And I think that's what this is. We've seen that from Schumer before. I mean, when people are friends, it's hard. It's hard to tell people, "Look, I'm gonna do something that is not what you want to hear." And not what you want to see, and it's going to upset you, and it's going to cause a lot of drama. I mean, I think it's hard, and I think the Senate is very different from the House When you have 435 people, it's very different than it is when you have 100. Because when you have 100 people, you're going to know those 99 other people. And as somebody who was a staffer and worked in the Senate, I saw that all the time. People who didn't want to get sideways with friends of theirs in the Senate, and they end up making a deal like this and not understanding that there are millions of people out there watching that don't know anything about the dynamics of all that, nor do they care. And these things are impacting their daily lives. And then they have to read that we're giving $40 billion, billion with a B, to Argentina in the same 90-day period. That pisses people off. Okay, as you saw in Virginia and New York last Tuesday, that pisses people off. And I think people get to a point where they say, look, I'm voting just as a statement against what I see happening. Not because of any specific person or thing, but I'm voting against the party that made that happen. You made $40 billion of tax money go to Argentina. Okay, I'm voting against that party that made that decision. Like, I don't think it's that complicated. I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, but I really don't think it's that complicated. Okay, so I will leave this thought from Jeremy, and hence remove the cap and allow anyone to get subsidies. Well, what I know, Jeremy, is that, look, whether we want to, I mean, I'm not a big fan of overcomplication, even though understanding the details is important. I'm not saying it's not important. It is important. It is important to get into the weeds, and it is important to understand what we're talking about. But effectively, what we're talking about is being one of the only industrialized nations that does not provide healthcare coverage via the government. For some reason, we have a thing in this country, but when we're helping other people, we see it as communism and socialism, and something is wrong with that. Other countries don't do that. Germany doesn't do that. Italy doesn't do that. England doesn't do that. France doesn't do it. They see it as helping their citizens, and that's it. They don't put a label on it as, oh wow, wait a minute, we're providing health care, therefore there's this big problem. They don't see it that way. They see it as we're helping our citizens. And frankly, when you're paying into the system, and believe me, I realize in those countries the taxes are higher, the citizens are paying more money into the system. That is true. But the attitude is we're helping our people, we're helping our citizens to live an easier life. And nobody gets into any big discussion over there. And I've been to England, I've been to Holland, I've been to France, I've been to Ireland. All right. Nobody gets into a big discussion over there about, oh my God, this is communism, that we're helping our own people. They just don't. They like to help their own citizens. I think it's Sweden or Switzerland that actually gives mothers a little sort of like package of like a sort of a care package when a woman has a baby. Like, their attitude is just, we got to help our own citizens here. Germany, they pay for a lot of education, higher education for their citizens. For some reason in the United States, we have this odd idea that if we're helping somebody else, something's wrong. And it's weird because we're a Christian nation. We love to talk about the Bible, and people like quoting the Bible and quoting church and this and that. Well, that's interesting, because part of that is being the type of person that helps other people. The Bible is all about that. Most religions are about helping other people, somewhere in there, right? And so, in a general sense, right? So it's always amazing to me to watch the same people that like to quote Bible and all this other stuff, and they love to talk about our country as if it's the best and all that, but these other countries are better. Let's face it, these other industrialized nations are better when it comes to the attitude of helping their own citizens. They just are. Paying back into their own citizens. And when I mean citizens, yeah, I do mean citizens. I mean people who are legal in the United States. That's right. We have a funny thing about that. We're putting up barriers all the time. Work requirements, paperwork, this, that, and the other thing. So it's a strange thing. I'll leave with that. Everybody, thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for being on. And I appreciate it. Appreciate all the attention, Jeremy. The stuff you've posted has been quite interesting. And this is um this is interesting, right? I mean, this is an interesting thing to think about as a country, just generally. I don't want to get into a whole big philosophical thing. It's not really even about Democrats or Republicans, just helping each other and the attitude of what the government, how the government should think about its citizenry. It's just a general basic question. And with that, I say goodnight. And it is 10 o'clock. It's 10:06. And as I look at the screen, I see that the Steelers and the Chargers are into the third quarter. So everybody, good night. Those of you on the West Coast, you're lucky. It was only 7 o'clock. All right, good night. This is Lauren Burke. Once again, I'm a former federal employee, former employee of the U.S. Senate, former U.S. Senate staffer, and a House staffer. I worked for a member of the House, Andre Carson of Indiana. I was communications director. And I also worked in the government in Virginia and in New York. And I worked in big media at ABC News for Cokie Roberts. That's how far back I go. Cokie Roberts was fantastic. The late, great Cokie Roberts. Worked for ABC, USA Today, Associated Press, the Hill newspaper, and a few others. I don't need to go through the whole thing, but good night, everybody. I like to talk politics. I'll be back probably at 9 o'clock tomorrow, depending on how it goes. Thanks everybody for listening, and I'll be back soon.